One second here. A little bit of a weird one today. I'm kind of cramped into a corner in a way that I am not always. So, welcome everybody. It's a little later than 3:30. We just had a birthday party that I was doing a demo for, so I'm running a little late today. But that's okay, because I've still got a good activity for you guys that we're gonna show off. So, welcome to our after almost time to start calling it after school STEM show again. We used to call these after school STEM, but then the summer started and that didn't make any sense anymore, so we kind of quit doing it. But summer's almost over. Kids are starting to get back into school here. And so what we're going to be doing today is talking a little bit about tarantulas, which if you're somebody who's been watching for a little while, you probably saw me do a tarantula mount a while ago. And in the meanwhile, in the intervening couple weeks there, our other tarantula actually also shed. And so we're going to be doing another similar tarantula mount here, and I'm going to be introducing you to the other tarantula. So the one we did the first time when we made this mount was our Chilean rose hair tarantulas, the one that we were working with before. So the rose hairs are from South America, kind of the western coast of South America. Very popular pet tarantula. We've had ours here for years and years and years and years. And so, like I said, she just shed maybe a month ago now. And the other one we got is our golden knee. So the golden knee is a little bit bigger. It's another South American tarantula though. And so that one is one that, again, shed just recently, a couple weeks after the rose hair did. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to get started by introducing tarantulas a little bit. And then kind of the latter part of this, when I'm actually gluing stuff down, you're probably mostly just going to be seeing my hands here. But just to start, so we'll introduce our tarantulas a little bit. So tarantulas are, of course, a type of spider. And there's tarantulas all over kind of the warmer parts of the world. They go in the Americas. There's far north as like Oklahoma, Kansas area. And then as far south as, like I said, like Argentina, Chile, way down in South America. And then they have a pretty similar range in Africa as well, where they're in most of the continent. And so they're quite big spiders, like among the biggest spiders in the world, various types of tarantula. I don't know off the top of my head exactly how spider sorting goes, if things like bird-eating spiders are officially considered tarantulas or not. But if they are, they're, like I said, the biggest spiders, but they're at the very least among the biggest spiders. And so spiders are, of course, arachnids, so they're related to less insects than they are related to things like scorpions and ticks and things like that would be the closest relatives to spiders. And one of the big differences between arachnids and insects is the number of body segments. And so one of the things that you'll see is this kind of little piece to the side here, and it's a really good way to see the two different body segments of the tarantula. So the part that's on the bottom here that you're seeing is the part that would cover the cephalothorax of the tarantula, so that's the front part of the spider. And then the back part here, or the higher part here, covers what would be called the abdomen of the spider. And so, like I said, insects have three body segments, so their head and their thorax are two separate segments, whereas with the spiders, it's one combined piece, the cephalothorax. You'll also notice a different number of limbs on a spider than what we see in insects. Insects have 6 limbs, and so spiders have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you might even notice there's 2 other kind of little protrusions here, and those are called pedipalps. So they look a lot like limbs, and they use them a lot like limbs, but it's actually part of their mouth is what they actually like anatomically are a part of. Other kind of cool thing with these mounts is you can see the underside of them, which isn't a side of the spiders you often see. And in particular, you can see where their mouth is, kind of right here, and then right above it is where the fangs actually are. And so something that's kind of interesting is this is a shed skin, but the fangs are actually still there. That's because spiders don't actually have teeth, technically. They have parts of their exoskeleton that kind of look like teeth and they kind of use like teeth, but they don't actually technically have teeth. The fangs that they have are actually just a part of their exoskeleton that's kind of shaped like that, basically, shaped like a tooth, and like I said, they use a lot like a tooth, but they don't technically have their own teeth. And so when they shed their skin, they actually shed a layer off of their teeth as well. And so the teeth are still up underneath there, they're still there, and what you'll find when the spiders shed is that they're actually really soft and really squishy for a while after they shed. It's actually a really vulnerable time for them. So a lot of times they'll be pretty hidey when a shed is coming up. They'll not want to be visible. They'll kind of go to the back of their tank a lot of the time. Use their hides that they have a lot more. And that's because, like I said, right immediately after they shed, their bodies are really soft and really squishy. And that's not only a problem because they're kind of lacking in, you know, what we would call armor, I guess, but they also just like can't really move because, you know, this is the spider's skeleton. And, you know, just like us, if you were to take away our skeleton, we couldn't move either. And so when the spider sheds its skin, it basically is losing its skeleton for a little while. And so it's not just a matter of, like I said, being like an armor thing. It's also a matter of, like, you need some hard stuff in your body for your muscles to leverage against when you're trying to move. And so losing those hard parts, like I said, makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for the spider to move very well, and which makes them very vulnerable. And so, I think, with no further ado here, we're going to start getting our shed prepped. And so what I'm going to be putting it in is this container here. So this is something that we just get, something that was in the store, something that we at some point had, you know, keychains or something in that we had in the store. But I like these because they're round, which is a good shape for putting these spiders in. They're just about the right size, and we can have these nice lids to put on them as well. And so what I'll do is I'm gonna hot glue them to the bottom here, nice and settled in place, and then I'm gonna cover it with this and probably tape this down, and then that's basically gonna be where we stop here today. And so, I think we're gonna orient our camera a little differently here. We're gonna lose face view here and go straight to hand view as we're looking at our spider. Throw my coat back on. It's getting sweaty after my talk, but I'm starting to cool down now. And so there's our spider there. Oh, I guess one more thing that's kind of cool with these guys, and I'm gonna pull one of these pins here to use as a pointer. As you can see, you know, even though we call it an exoskeleton, I'll actually do this. Is this gonna work? Sorry, we're experimenting live here, guys. Yeah, that's not too bad. Can you turn the light on? Probably better with the light off, huh? Yeah. But one of the things you can see is the structure inside of the actual spider itself. So like I said, we call it an exoskeleton, which means a skeleton that's on the outside. But even with the exoskeleton, there are still parts that it has to have on the inside to give it a little bit of internal structure, just for the sake of being able to keep its shape. You can think about it almost like something like an air mattress. You know how your air mattress has to have those things that are like connecting the top to the bottom? Spiders got to do the same thing, and all big arthropods do, because otherwise they would just kind of turn into big spheres, basically. And so what I have here are entomology pins. So there's nothing real super special about them. They're just like a narrow, rigid pin that we use to put through the exoskeletons of our things that we're mounting. And these spiders are very, very fragile, so we got to be very careful with them. So they wouldn't be super surprised if we lose a foot or something here. I'm going to try and not do that, but it could happen. It's not the end of the world if it does. So this first one's already giving me fits here. So this shed is quite a bit older than what we probably would necessarily want to be doing with this with. I got it mounted right away just for the sake of getting the shape settled. But usually if you're going to be doing a mount, you want it to be a little bit more pliable than what this one's actually going to end up being. Probably. This one's been sitting on my desk for the last probably 2 weeks or so. So it's a little rigid and a little more fragile than what it otherwise would be. But you can see even with that, now other than this literally the first one I tried, it's not giving me too many problems as far as getting the pins out. And there goes that one. I mangled that foot a little bit, but like I said, not the end of the world. Got 7 more. And we have other tarantula specimens in our collection as well already. And as I'm touching it here, you might be curious as to how a tarantula feels on the outside. I mean, you can see they're kind of fuzzy looking, and they actually do feel kind of fuzzy. The hair on them is actually kind of soft. And so their hair is not made out of the same stuff our hair is. Their hair is made out of stuff called chitin. So it's the same stuff the rest of their exoskeleton is made out of actually, but it's structurally very similar to our hair, even though it's not quite the same thing. Alright, so that's, I think, all of our pins out here. Just bonked my head on my lamp there. Let's fiddle with this just a smidge. And get a little extra light on without blowing my whole screen out. Yeah, kinda. Okay. And so now, I'm gonna lift her off here, and it's incredible how light this is. Like it barely feels like anything when I'm holding it here. I'm just gonna set it down right inside there. We'll do the same for this piece here. Remember that second kind of smaller piece that I just put in is, like I said, the back plate for the spider. So that's the part that would have covered this big gap you're seeing here, and then all the way back to the rear end there. Something else we didn't talk about, it's kind of cool. If we can get a decent angle on it here, are the spinnerets. And so the spinnerets are the 2 things at the very back of the spider here that they use to pull their webbing out of their abdomen. And so they produce the web, and then there's 2 little kind of points on the back here that they can use to kind of almost like pull it out of themselves as they're making their webs. And tarantula webs are a little bit different than the webs that you're probably used to seeing with like your garden spiders, your various orb weavers or whatever. They don't make a web that they like hang in. It's not like a corner like hanging web that's meant to like catch things necessarily. When they make their web, it's almost more like a big carpet. And so looks like that. And you can see this is just the bottom substrate of an old tank. And you can see all this white stuff in there is the webbing that the spider is kind of mixed in with the substrate. And then so whenever anything walks across it, they can feel where it's walking, and then they just run out and grab it and use their venom to make their kill. Alright, bring this back on screen here. Get a hot glue gun. So then arguably we'd rather use super glue for this. You just put a little dab of super glue down and stick the feet in each of it. But this is a lot easier, I find, is to use a little bit of hot glue. And yeah, you kind of drown the can sometimes kind of drown the feet a little bit, but know it's on there well, and like I said, it's easy to apply. And we just happen to have a hot glue gun that's pretty handy right here upstairs, so I'm not above using a tool just because it's easy, even if it's maybe not the ideal tool for the job. Like I said, we'll have a little trouble seeing the tops of the feet, but like I said, we got plenty of tarantula mounts. This is a mount that I'm making almost mostly for the sake of this show, more so than I am for actual exhibit floor usage. I'm just trying to get a couple points on various different sides of the spider here just to get it kind of anchored down. As you can see, it is still moving around a little bit on me. So I got one on the spinnerets, one on one of the front legs, one on one of the back legs. Now I'm gonna a little bit there. And this one's a little different than the last one because it's such a hairier spider. It's actually a little tricky to actually get the glue down because it gets caught up in the hair on the legs. And those hairs are kind of cool. Like I said, they are actually a lot softer than you would maybe expect them to be. And they're called articulating hairs. And so they don't really help to keep the spider warm at all, like the hair on a mammal would. But that's not what they're there for. They actually use them pretty much exclusively for defensive purposes. And so one of the things you'll see, particularly South American tarantulas doing when they get a little aggravated, is they might start flinging their hairs at you. So they'll start kind of rubbing their bodies in such a way that, like I said, flings those little hairs at you. And they're not like poisonous or anything. There's not like a venom associated with the hairs, but they can be kind of irritating to the skin. Like, I've never really had to deal with it a whole lot because I wear gloves when I'm like cleaning their tanks out. But supposedly, like, if it gets on your skin, it'll give you a kind of a rash or some otherwise sort of skin irritation associated with it. Like I said, not something I've ever really had to deal with, though. I use precautions whenever I'm doing anything with the spiders. And these guys are two, we have two tarantulas that live here. We have the rose hair and we have the golden knee. And they are two critters who do not come out and visit with guests directly on the exhibit floor. And it's not because they're really, like, dangerous per se. I mean, they do have fangs, they do have a venom to them. But the venom they have is not really dangerous to humans. There is a non-zero chance that you can be allergic to their venom. So it's kind of like a bee sting in that regard, where for most people it's really not a problem, but for some people it's really, really a problem. So we're got to be a little careful in that, right? But as far as like getting bit by a thing and like having the venom directly like kill you just because it's a really, you know, virulent venom, that's not it. And so we'll let that, just put a little dab of glue on each of the feet and then a little bit over the spinnerets, and then you saw I put one dab on the back of the cephalothorax plate there. And once we're settled here, I'll probably try and get a little bit like right on the very end of this one here, of the abdomen segment, just to keep it from flapping around. And my glue gun's almost out of glue here. Didn't work great, but I got more glue sticks too. Might just do that after the stream's done. But in the meanwhile, while we're sitting there hanging out with this, actually something kind of nifty is happening next to me. Because I actually have the spider that this came from is hanging out just off screen here. I think what we'll do is we'll slide her in. Because like I said, something kind of interesting just happened where she actually just caught the cricket that I gave her yesterday. And so hopefully we can get her on screen here without disturbing her too much. futz with lighting a little bit here, futz with my angle a little bit. You can see her moving around down there. And I think what we'll do is I'm gonna take you guys. Hi, chat. It's me. I'm gonna point you down in there. You can see her there. And she's kind of raised up in kind of a weird posture, and that's because she's holding that cricket underneath her. And she's grasping and holding there. And so she tends to be the more aggressive of the hunter between our two tarantulas. She's the one that tends to catch the crickets faster and more consistently than the rosehair does. And like I said, you're seeing her kind of up and active and moving because she just caught, instead of cricket that we put in there yesterday. That's kind of cool. But and you can also see, I guess, get our side-by-side here where there's the real spider and there's the shed skin from it. And like I said, that posture that the skin's in is a little bit more how they kind of tend to hang out. Like I said, she's raised up a bunch and has so kind of a smaller profile than what she often would have because she's got that cricket that she's holding on to. But I was going to maybe take her out and let her walk around the table a little bit, but if she's eating, I'm going to let her be, okay? Mask is slipping down. And so, that is mostly going to take care of what I had today. Like I said, I might grab another glue stick and make sure that that back piece is actually on tight. But otherwise, like I said, I think I've shown you all I wanted to show you. Talked a little bit about tarantulas. Visited with our real live tarantula, Shaw shed skin there. Shaw shed skin. And so, yeah, sorry I was a little bit late today, guys. Like I said, we had a birthday party up here today. And so, that's something that if you would be interested in, we do host birthday parties here. Generally, it's a thing that happens on the weekends where we get birthday parties that come in. So Saturdays and Sundays we'll oftentimes have birthday parties, and you can call us for scheduling and booking on that if that sounds interesting to you. But otherwise, if you just want to come in for a regular old visit, the Headwaters Science Center is open. We're open 7 days a week from 9:30 to 5. 9:30 to 5 Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays we're open from 1 o'clock until 5. And so a little bit shorter day on Sunday, but still open if you want to come by in the afternoon. And if you happen to come by at 3:30, or as was the case today, a little after 3:30, we will pretty much always be doing one of these shows here. We've been doing these pretty much daily for the last, almost going on a year now. I think it was November or October that we started doing them, and we've only missed a couple days the entire time. So, like I said, if you happen to come by at 3:30, we might be doing one of these shows. And so tomorrow is Sunday, so I assume it's Anne going to be doing something. I'll have to double check with her. It might be Spencer, actually. Someone's going to be doing a show. It's not going to be me. I've been the last 3 days, and so tomorrow you'll get a fresh new face, a fresh new perspective on it. So if you're tired of seeing me, you can still tune in tomorrow and see somebody else. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you tomorrow. I gotta run all the way around and hit the end stream button.